am Debra R. Richardson of Debra R. Richardson LLC, and I work with you to help you clean up your vendor data, clean up your vendor processes so that you pay the right vendor. Now, this week's Vendor Master File tip of the week is the first bank failure in 2024. Here is what to do with those vendors. So you might be wondering, well, dang, what bank is that failed if you haven't heard about it? And that is the Republic First Bank, DBA Republic Bank in Philadelphia. And as you can see, it has a closing date, but also it has an acquiring institution, and we'll talk about why that matters in just a moment. But if you didn't know that there is a running list of all bank failures that the FDIC tracks, I will put a link to that in the description, and you can then bookmark it so that you can be aware of these banks when they fail. And also, when you click on that, it gives you much more information about what really happens with those deposits and whether the payments you make to your vendors will be honored or not. And in this case, they will be. So I will go ahead again, put that link in the description. So check that out if you are interested. Now, what does this mean for the vendor team? Now, I don't know if you remember, and I didn't point it out on the last slide, but there were a couple of bank failures, Signature Valley Bank and Silicon Bank, was it last year or the year before last? And so here's what can happen when those banks failed. You can have failed electronic payments, but in this case, it appears that there is a bank that has assumed all of their deposits, all of their information, all of their accounts. And so that means, and if you click through on that link to the failed bank list and then click on that bank, the FDIC gives much more information surrounding that closure. And in this case, the payments will go on and should be successful as normal. The vendors can still use their checks, and so there shouldn't be any issues. But eventually, maybe you may see that routing number is no longer going to be valid, and you will have failed electronic payments, at which point you'll need to process those return payments, reach out to the vendor, and get their updated information. Next, you might receive notice of changes. So maybe you're sending the banking information through on the pay file to the bank, and that banking information has Republic Bank's routing number on it. And so you may see that information will be changed. And because that information, that routing number is changed in order for the payment to be made, that might trigger a notice of change. And usually when you get those, that is an indicator that you need to update the routing number for that vendor's bank so that you don't receive notice of changes, because you can't receive too many of those. Otherwise, it'll result in a notch of fine. And then next, you could have increased contact with the vendor to update their banking, or with vendors that belong to that or that use that specific bank. And so now your customer service, your help desk is going to get many more requests. That volume will be higher. And then lastly, of course, the fraudsters track when these banks fail, because they know that you're going to be expecting that some of your vendors will switch banks, right? And so there'll be increased activity around bank changes. And so they follow these types of events, and they may preemptively submit a change because they know that it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to receive a bank change. So what can your team do? You and your team do? You can be more diligent, apply more fraud prevention techniques, internal controls, best practices, vendor validations, and authentication techniques. And I have a free training that's part of the three-step vendor setup and maintenance process of authentication, validation, management. And I'm going to put a link to that training session in the show notes as well. It is a paid training session, but that first section on authentication, that even comes with a template is free. So make sure you sign up for that. All right, so if you'd like more information on how to improve your vendor process, please go to my website at deborarrichardson.com for free tools and resources to avoid fraud, regulatory fines, and just overall bad vendor data. Now, if you would like over 171 hours, yes, 171 hours, I am always adding training and I'm adding AI and RPA training. But if you would like that many hours of training that is dedicated to the vendor setup and maintenance process, then check out the Vendor Process Training Center at training.deborarrichardson.com. So good luck and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to be notified next Tuesday for the next Vendor Master File tip of the week.